Welcome to statistics class. This is the first section of the first chapter. And it's a little introduction. It has some vocabulary in it. It sets the stage for what we're looking at for our semester. I encourage you to have out your book or your ebook. And if you have out your book, to have out maybe some sticky notes or some index cards, highlighters, pens. If you have out your ebook, become familiar with the ways to highlight, underline, etc. in the ebook. Either way, have something where you're writing and actively involved in our videos. Starting on page, don't even know what page this is, 3, 2, 1. So starting on page 1, it's talking about the nature of probability and statistics. But I wanted to look at this page for a moment and then ask the question, is higher ed going digital? And this video is being made during the pandemic, and we are looking at, do we go back face-to-face or do we not? And so, we all got to go digital very quickly. So as you go through this semester, make it as personable as you can, and I will do the same, and that's going to include me reaching out on these kind of videos to actually touch, underline, and involve what you see with what you hear. So along those lines, I encourage you, again, to have out your hard copy book or your ebook open as you're listening to this video. I'm not going to read everything. That's going to be your job. And then how you learn is going to be your job. How you soak in the information, how you wrestle with it to make it make sense, that's going to be what you do that you know how to do very well. If you're not sure, I'll give you some tips along the way, and so we'll start here. I would like to go ahead and say that it is used in almost all fields of human endeavor. And again, not to over-reference COVID-19, but we have heard a plethora of statistics on a plethora of topics. And it's not only during the pandemic. And as you read on down here, statistics is. And so let me go ahead and stop here for a second and say that you really might want to use flashcards. And like on this one, you might want to say statistics on one side and then turn it over and write the rest of this that's in the green box. And then add to it so that it makes sense to you and it's understandable to you, because I will be asking you some vocabulary pieces on the test. Some of them will be a single answer on a multiple choice. Some of them will be multiple answers on a multiple choice. And some of them will be short answer. So starting the index cards, I think, is a great idea. And one more reason, when I give you a review for the final exam, then all you have to do is go pull the index cards you've already made, and you'll create your final review stack. And you don't have to do that extra work. And plus, anything you've memorized on your cards, it's going to be easier to recall because you've already seen them and learned them. So as we keep looking at our book and you're underlining, just some things or reasons why you should study statistics, and then some things you might want to underline. You can read and understand in your field. Whatever field you're going into, it gives you a level of being educated to know how to read what is mentioned, going on, referenced, whatever in your field. Second, you may want to conduct some research in your field to do various and sundry things. And here is a paragraph about that, but you may be trying to write a grant and get some funding. You may be trying to show why what you're doing is working, or why you need to get a certain piece of technology or equipment, and you need to back that up. You may want to conduct some research. And you just become a better consumer and citizen. And again, with COVID-19 and all of the details flying around, you've got to have some kind of understanding to sort through the barrage of information we are getting. It does say at the bottom that this chapter is going to help us to answer some questions like, what are the branches of statistics? What are data? And you can say data or data, don't care. And then how are the samples selected? So we'll keep going up here. And you're underlining, you're highlighting, you're thinking, you're stopping the video to soak in, to write down. You are making this make sense. We will cover a lot of information this semester. You have got to make sure that you're stopping along the way to make sure every piece and part is making sense. I know sometimes you'll have to keep going because it's just, it's not working just yet, but don't get too far gone before you stop and really go back and make sense out of what you're reading and what you're doing. This course has a really nice balance of vocabulary with calculations. And also it's a lot of critical thinking. Inside the word problems, you'll have to know what to pull out, what information based on the vocabulary, and then what you have, then what formulas do you know, and then be able to put all of that together and come out with an answer that's very reasonable. So I want to start up here at the top. Again, I'm not reading everything, but pointing out several highlighted pieces. There's a thing called a variable, and the first 4 letters would spell vary. It means it can change, and it says here, assume different values. Data are the values that they can assume, these variables can assume. And this is one, if you haven't made a flashcard yet, you might want to go ahead and make a flashcard. Call it random variables. Just make sure you can read whatever you're writing. And then on here it says, and I would put like what it officially says, random variables are variables whose values are determined by chance. And then later, by the way, you might want to put that this was on page 3. You might want to put that it's in section 1.1. Whatever you're going to do that's going to help you later to be able to come back and find this specific word. And then later, as we go through talking about chance and random variables, random, you'll want to add to this information. It's just a nice little place to keep a whole lot of valuable pieces. And so moving on down, it talks about a collection is going to be called a data set or a data set. And each value is called a data value or a datum. And I won't use that word. I'll call it a data value. Again, if you're doing the population, if you're doing the index cards, this is one I would definitely go ahead. I'll grab another index card. I'll keep a stack of them. I would grab an index card and I would put on here like population. This one's going to be major. And right now you're not going to know what's major and not major, but you can sort through that, and also it slows your brain down that it consists, and you can finish all of this out, blah, blah, blah. But if you look down here at the bottom, there is a drawing. And the drawing has population on the outside, and then it has sample contained within it. And so you might want to have population and sample on the same card. I wouldn't. I would put them on 2 separate cards. But a population, and then you, like as you're writing, what makes sense? It consists of all of the subjects that are being studied. I've got it, whoop, you can't even see what I wrote. Oh, you can see that, but it consists of all that are being studied. And then when we get down here to sample, it is a group selected from the population. So as the picture shows, a sample comes out of a population. Sometimes it's a hard concept for students to understand, so it is good to write it down, think on it, put it on notebook paper, whatever is going to help you to learn this information the best. So then there it says, oh wait, there's more. There's a body of knowledge, and sometimes it's divided into 2 main areas, depending on how the data are used. And here are the 2 main areas. One is called descriptive, and one is inferential. Those need to make really good sense to you. Descriptive, well, it sounds like describe. So if I was making a card, and on the outside, or the front, I put descriptive statistics. Hopefully you would write it better. On the back, I would even write down, you know, that sounds like the word describe. And then it consists of there's formal definition, and I would write it down, but then look right here. The statistician tries to describe a situation. And by the way, if the words statistics or statistician get you, in class we would play around and we would all go sta, because then that helps you with the statistics or statistician. But you'll have to play around with that on your own. And then we go up here to the top of page 4, and as we look at the top of page 4, it goes to that other branch. And it says, oh, it is called inferential. Oh, that sounds like a word called inferring. Oh, And then it has a formal definition, but then it breaks it down and says, yeah, you're going to make inferences from the sample to the population. And so I would write and I would read and I would think on this. And when it's talking about inferring, in other words, we'll do some kind of study, data collection on a sample. And then if the sample is chosen well, and we'll talk about what that looks like, then we can say, hey, whatever happens to this sample, I can infer that will be what's going to happen to the whole population. So it tells us a little bit more. It mentions some probability, and then it mentions this thing called that the area of inferential statistics is called hypothesis testing, is a decision-making process. Once we get to hypothesis testing, we are done with the semester. We are there. We have arrived. The heavens will open and the angels will sing. It will be like, all of the stuff fits together. I get it. It makes sense now. Hypothesis testing is where we are headed. We just need to put in a whole lot of pieces and parts between here and there. A couple of other things I've underlined that you might want to underline too. Statisticians use statistics to determine relationships, looking for relationships. Finally, you can try to make predictions. And it talks about insurance, car dealers, doctors, risk assessment. If they tell you you've been diagnosed with cancer, they will start quoting statistics like you have a 90% chance, and so many things that are based on statistics. And I think that overall idea I want you to glean from this course is that you ask a lot of questions. Like, well, what are those statistics based on? Who was studied? When were they studied? And where did you get your information from? And how did you collect it? And what kind of questions did you ask? I really want you to be inquisitive, playing devil's advocate with everything we're doing this semester. You will hear me say a lot to reach out to me by email and to reach out to me through our online program, online homework program, to send Ask My Instructor questions. I really want you to ask a lot of questions, not only of me, but of our tutors and of your fellow classmates. I want you to ask, think, dig. It's called discourse, and it's called let's learn and think a whole lot about this subject. I know you've got other subjects, but really get saturated with this one. Learn it the best that you can, make the grade that you're wanting to make, and then hopefully most of it's going to stick with you and carry on to whatever you're choosing to do next. I would pause the video here and I would do A, B, C, D by yourself. And then I would come back and look at the answers. I'll play around with I'll just go ahead and play around with all of them. So if you want to hit pause, go do these and then come back, then start play again and we'll talk through them. So right here it says the average price, and we're going to be talking about mean, median, and mode of a 30-second ad was $1.9 million. And so it says, does this describe or is it inferring? Well, this is describing. You buy the ad, you're going to get about a bill for $1.9 million. It's an average, and we'll talk more about that, but it's not inferring. It is what it is as an average. The Department of Economic and Social Affairs predicts that the population will be, predicts? They're taking what they know right now and inferring from the current population, the current sample, what a future number may or may not be, but it's statistics. Again, with COVID, they're making predictions. If we wear masks, then it will be this. If we don't, it will be this. So lots of inferring of this is what's going on with the sample right now, and this is what we infer will be for the majority or of the population later. A medical report taking statins can lower heart attacks, but some people are at a slightly higher risk of developing diabetes. And so this is not giving us like a description of, 30% of people in America are diagnosed with diabetes. It's taking a report. Someone has studied something of a sample. And when they studied the sample, they're now inferring it to the population that if you take these statins, then this could happen or this might happen, so it's inferential. And then finally, there's a survey and a poll, and looky, 55%. They are describing what happened in this survey. So this concludes our first section, 1.1, in our Math 1342 class.